Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Hey, your ass is grass. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. What's going on out there? Y'all read the title. Jenna Scurry, the first person to testify at the Derek Chauvin trial. It's a breakdown. We're going to go through the testimony. We're going to hear what she about, what her job duties are, and her descriptions are on her job. We're going to hear what she got to say. All right? It's the Resistance, man.
Officers take an oath. Officers take an oath. Officers take an oath. Officers take an oath when they become police officers. Oath when they become police officers. They take an oath that I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, and as you will learn, as applies to this case, never employing unnecessary force or violence. And not only that, I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass.
To be held.
Your ass is grass.
To the ethics of police service. Symbol of public faith, ethics to police service, sanctity of life. All of this matters tremendously to this case, because you will learn that on May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Hey, your ass is grass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
Mr. Floyd was unarmed. That Mr. Floyd had not threatened anyone. That Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs. He was completely under control of the police. He was defenseless. You will learn what happened in that 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The most important numbers you will hear in this trial are 929.
That's your ass.
9 minutes and 29 seconds.
That's your ass.
Derek Chauvin was applying this excessive force to body Mr. George Floyd. We have two objectives in this trial, ladies and gentlemen. The first objective is to give Mr. Chauvin a fair trial. Mr. Chauvin
That's your ass.
has a presumption of innocence. He is presumed to be
Grass
innocent
is grass.
until proven guilty. We plan to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Mr. Chauvin was anything other than innocent on May 25th of 2020.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Your ass is grass.
Officers take an oath. Officers take an oath when they become police officers. Officers take an oath when they become police officers. Take an oath that I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, and as you will learn, as applies to this case, never employing unnecessary force or violence. And not only that, I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Hey, your ass is grass. Woo! That's your ass, that's your ass, that's your ass. Your ass is grass.
And not only that, I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service.
That's your ass.
Symbol of public faith, ethics to police.
Your ass is grass.
Sanctity of life, all of this matters tremendously to this case, because you will learn that on May 25th, 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body.
That's your ass.
Mr. George Floyd.
Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. And that's your ass, that's your ass, that's your ass. Your ass is grass. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. I'm back. I had to black out a little bit. That's called That's Your Ass. Hey, Mr. Chauvin. Shout outs to Roaster Studios. Free Thinker 59. Melissa X. OG Perfect Sense. Local Weymouth, UK. What up, bro? Appreciate that cash drop, Roaster Studios. I got it. Spooky Press on Free. What's going on? Hollywood Jones. What up, bro? Yeah, we about to get into this, man. So like I said, we're talking about Jenna Scurry, the first lady who testified on the stand at this trial, the Derek Chauvin trial, the state versus Derek Chauvin. His ass is grass. Y'all know that. Come on, man. Just everything that's just been said alone already so far. Since the beginning of this trial, his ass is grass. It has to be. If there's anything less, there will be turmoil. You know what I'm saying? It will be turmoil. So, Jenna Scurry, in the beginning of her testimony, she explains, the duties of a dispatcher, the different levels of dispatching, such as the two sections. You have fire and rescue. Shout out to Melissa S. Thank you. You have fire and rescue, and you have 911 calls. So on this particular day, she was doing the 911 call dispatch. And what makes this whole thing so interesting, ladies and gentlemen, what makes the whole thing so interesting is that the situation got so intense, and she thought that there was such a concern that she called the cops on the motherfucking cops. Wow. 911 dispatch called backup for the cops. That's how concerned she was about how the situation had escalated and heightened. Okay? Melissa Scurry, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into it.
Thank you, Ms. Scurry. Can you tell the jurors what your occupation is?
I am a Minneapolis 911 dispatcher.
And so who is your employer?
City of Minneapolis.
And how long have you been doing that?
Almost 7 years.
Can you tell the jurors what kind of training goes into being a dispatcher?
A lot of training. We go through close to 2 years of training, starting with call taking, where citizens are calling 911 with their emergencies. Also speaking to non-emergencies and how we can direct those. We then work with police and fire on sending them their calls and prioritizing those, and also with the police officers on their off duties.
So basically, right here, she's going into the descriptions and duties of her work, what she actually does. I think this was real important, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I think this was real important that prosecution went into this. It may seem a little boring, but it shows how experienced that she is with what she does.
To handle.
And do you also, for instance, have to answer?
Shout out to Wing Fang.
Yes.
And is this just for police calls and fire calls, or what kind of calls are involved?
We have two different dispatches. So we have police dispatchers who will take the calls from 911 and the information and give it out to the officers over the radio. And we have fire dispatchers who will then do that specifically for the fire department.
So there are kind of four different aspects to your job, right?
Correct.
What can you just describe first what those four really are?
The first one, 911 call taking, again, where the citizens would call in, giving their emergencies. We help with prioritizing those or getting them to non-emergencies lines. We then have fire dispatch, where those dispatchers specifically send over fire rigs to fires or medical runs. Channel 7 would be where we log in our off-duty officers, deal with watch children reports, warrants. It's called our information channel because it is a lot of where information questions happen. And then our police dispatching, where we take those calls from 911 and then send them out to the officers based on priority.
So a lot of people think of.
So she's basically explaining to you what she does on a day-to-day, what she does day-to-day at work, excuse me. Doesn't seem very easy. Look like she takes a lot of calls. She has to distribute a lot of information out into the field. And when I say field, out into the areas where the patrolmen work at, the officers. And it doesn't seem too easy. But she's explaining it, and it sounds like she knows what she's doing.
Well, similar to like this, covered with carpet, it's a large center. You'll have all the call takers together. Similar structure, you'll have all the calls currently located in a basement. We have walls similar to like this, covered with carpet. It's a large center. You'll have all the call takers together, similar to how the jurors are set, but you'll have 5 to 6 different screens around you. And then in another room, you'll have your fire dispatchers to give them some silence so they can work around that and be on the radio and listen to the firefighters. Across the room, you will have our Channel 7 that is closely located to our dispatch group, which is approximately 4 people that are giving out all the calls to the officers.
So you say that fire dispatchers are somewhat different. Why is that?
It's just the layout of our center. Police dispatchers also across the room away from the call takers. It gives them the ability to be louder if they need to, if someone's hard of hearing or anything like that. The chatter also gets, with everybody together, gets pretty loud, so we have our own different areas for the ability.
All right, so now we're acclimated with what she does. Most of us heard this during the actual trial, but for those who didn't know who Jenna Scurry is, she's the dispatch lady who took the call of the situation that went down minutes before George Floyd died. I'm going to scoot this ahead a little bit, and we're going to go into the actual call report. Before I do, though, just let you guys know, you know I'm not into selling content, but I do sell recipes, and made some dinner earlier because I knew I was going to be with you guys on the live stream. I knew it'd be too late by the time I get off to make dinner. So just going to give y'all a little, anybody need some ideas on what to make this evening or whatever, throw this up there to y'all. And if y'all interested, I give y'all my recipe. Send me $5 to my Cash App. But this is what I made. I also made this last year and turned it into a video, as you can see, but I decided to make it again. So there you go. That's fish, some tuna noodle salad right there with bow tie noodles and vegetables. Give y'all a little idea on what y'all could probably eat tonight. A little something on the light side. But if y'all interested in that, y'all want that recipe, that's a special kind of batter right there. That's not your ordinary flour or whatever y'all throw on y'all fish. That's something special right there. Got a light texture to it, and it be popping. But that's Bitch Richmond's seafood dinner right there. So y'all could send $5 to the Cash App if y'all are interested in that recipe. It's the resistance, man.
And the other channels involved have different precincts. So the address allows us to give it to different dispatchers so they can disseminate that information.
So a call goes to a call taker. They give information to you to do the dispatch on.
Correct.
And so were you working on May 25th of last year?
I was.
What was your shift? Do you remember that day?
My shift was a middle shift. I started at 14:30, which is 2:30 in the afternoon, and I worked until midnight 30, which is 12:30 at night.
And I think you told us your responsibility then was which areas of Minneapolis?
Channel 1, which would be precinct 2 and precinct 3.
So then the other channels have the other precincts.
Correct.
And so what was your assignment? What were your job duties on May 25th of 2020?
As a police dispatcher, it was to take the calls that came in from 911 and to dispatch them to the police officers.
And incidentally, I think I may have forgot to ask you, is there always a sergeant on duty when you're serving as a dispatcher? A sergeant on duty out in the streets in each precinct?
Yes.
How many sergeants are there generally on?
Depends on their shift. Minimal of 1.
And as part of your duties, do you often have contact with those sergeants about calls and other matters?
Yes.
Now, on that date, May 25 of 2020, did you dispatch a call to officers to a location known as Cup Foods?
Yes.
And did you receive that 911 call?
I did not.
And you dispatched a call about that?
Correct.
Are you familiar with that location, Cup Foods?
Yes.
And what, the intersection where that's located?
38th in Chicago.
And is that, now Ms. Scurry, I'm going to ask for 151 to be put up on the screen so we can all see it. And starting here with the first page of this document, and I'll represent to you that we have not included the entire document, right? This is just a portion of that information, correct?
Correct.
So what I'm going to ask you to do here with the first line is tell us, run us through that first line and tell us the information on that very top line.
The first line is from the call taker. It is a query of the plate that's in the call, and then we use a lot of abbreviations for quick hand information to the dispatchers, and it would say outside on 38th Street reporting that there is a male provided a counterfeit bill to a business. The suspect is a black male, 6 foot taller, sitting on top of a blue Mercedes ML320 SUV, license plate for Robert John 026.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this blown up a little bit so it's easier for everybody to read along with you. And at least the first couple lines, just so that it's bigger for us all to see.
So this is the call right here. There's a male provided a counterfeit bill to the business. Suspect is black male, 6 feet plus. That's what this means right here, 6 feet plus. Sitting on top of a blue Mercedes ML320 SUV. And license plate is BRJ026. And if anybody's wondering about this 2419 Ilion Avenue, this is where the information of the car registers to this address. 2419 Ilion Avenue. Also appears this person is under the influence.
So the first column on the left, self-explanatory, that's the date.
Correct.
And then the time, also probably self-explanatory. What does user mean?
User would be how you identify different persons involved. This person, you can tell is a call taker. It's the first two letters there, and then it has their ID number. We all have our own ID numbers.
And so what's your ID?
Well, this person right here,
Mine.
this is the call taker. This is the person. The call taker also has an ID number attached to it, which is 031779 for this specific case, which is this incident that happened on May 25th, 2020. George Floyd got killed.
Has 123096.
But this first user number that starts with a CT, you're familiar with who is assigned that number, generally who has that number?
Yes.
And how do we know that?
It's given to our certain, everybody has their own specific one. If I needed to query that to find out who it was, it would tell me.
Or generally who has that number?
Yes.
And how do we know that?
It's given to our certain, everybody has their own specific one. If I needed to query that to find out who it was, it would tell me who their name is. But I also know that that's a call taker based off of the first two letters.
And then type, what does type mean?
It's the response.
So that's outgoing information.
Yes, I believe. I don't know exactly what that means actually.
Okay. So that first line, query, somebody's asking to run a license plate, correct?
Correct.
So then the next line, can you describe for the jury then what we're seeing here, all that's in capital letters?
So everything we write is usually in capital letters, but
All right, you got a guy named Meowser McFur who says, "Hey people, Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose." Okay, Meowser McFur, where's your proof?
first three letters are OTS. It's our short term for outside. And then just on 38th Street is providing the information of where. We try to be as clear as possible and paint the picture. So outside on 30th Street, reporting that there's providing our counterfeit bills for business.
And so is this the information that the call taker provided to you to make the dispatch to officers?
Yes.
And as part of this process, does that information also go to the officers in writing?
Yes. All of this information is sent to them when they're assigned the call.
So this is available to them in their squad car as well?
Correct.
And we see then there's a description of the vehicle, correct? Blue Mercedes.
Yes.
And then there's an address.
Yes. That is the query information. That goes in there so we can. Sometimes plates don't match vehicles. Is the reason why we ask, along with the license plate, what kind of vehicle are you seeing? So when we run that plate, we can say this is a stolen vehicle, and it doesn't match, or the plate doesn't match, because it may just be wrong.
So here, clear to 2419 Ilion Avenue North, what is that?
That is the registered owner's address.
Of the vehicle that's described there.
Yes.
And so then, the next line, no screening questions asked, what does that mean?
Due to the pandemic, we have certain questions that we ask, and there were no screening questions asked based off of the person not being the person they're calling about. So the caller, as far as we know, they're not going to have contact with, but no screening questions were asked to let the officers know that we did. Right.
All right, so we'll try exhibit 10 again.
So now we're moving on to the call. The call that was recorded. that she received concerning the George Floyd incident.
23, May 25, 2020.
3:30, yes, because that is the only available on your sensors. The cup food, Chicago, 3759 Chicago. On 38, they are reporting that this person who was using counterfeit bill as a business, suspect of a black male, was for a caller sitting on the hood of a blue Mercedes, license plate 411 possibly intoxicated as well.
Could you put the call saying about it now?
Copy, sir, yes, I could.
This is Jenna dispatching the call out into the field.
Possibly intoxicated as well.
Could you put the call saying about it now?
Copy, sir, yes, I could.
With the officers on the street, correct? Alright. Back up and run through this a little bit. And if you can tell us, Cub Foods is in which sector?
It's in sector 320.
And you initially called this out to 3:30, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall who was working at 3:30 that day?
I don't specifically know.
And so when you start your shift, you just know there's a car out there that's 3:30, you're calling to them.
Correct.
And after that, 3:30, called back and said copy, correct?
Correct.
And what does that mean?
It means they acknowledge that they've been given a call.
And subsequent to that, there was a call from 3:20, correct?
Yes.
And what was the substance of that call?
They said they would take their call.
So based on what you knew about 3:20 being busy, what did you take from that exchange that 3:20 was not calling in?
That they were able to at least put their call in pending and they could come back to it and then take their call.
They also mentioned pending priority 9. What does that mean?
That means that I didn't clear them from their call.
So part I'm not clear on is that she originally put the call out for 3:20, but 3:20 was already out on the call, so she pushed it to 3:30. I'm thinking it was 3:20. Chauvin and his partner. Was the call originally supposed to go to Chauvin, but they was out on the call? Because we do know that there was a different unit that pulled up on George Floyd.
Sometimes I will clear a squad for whichever reason. If it's report advised, sent, there's a multitude of different reasons. And I instead just put it back in pending so they can pick it up later to finish whatever they needed to do.
And then 3:30 ended up calling and saying cancel, thanks 20, correct?
Correct.
Right. What did that mean?
That they were no longer going to be going to the call and to thank them.
And so when you're making, when you're doing that dispatch,
Shout outs to Douglas Stewart.
at some point, did you ask to send additional officers there?
In the initial one, no.
But did you eventually?
Yes.
All right. So if we can go back to 151, please. And again, we'll expand that first page so we can see it easier. You'll see a line at 2010-08. So that would be 810-08, correct?
Correct.
And that's your identification number, correct?
Correct.
And so what tells us what that line is about?
These are the actions that I did to back the squad 320 up with 330 and then
3:30.
And so when you're saying backed up 320 with 330, what does that mean? What do you-
Additional squads are en route.
And so did you request that, or was that information you got that they were going to back up 320?
I backed them up.
Do you recall why?
I believe, I don't remember specifically, that I heard something loud in the background and asked for additional squads until code 1.
And you did that as well with 830, correct?
Correct.
And what does 830 refer to?
Squad 830 is a park squad.
And by park squad, you mean what?
They're a Minneapolis park officer.
So it's the park police work for the city of Minneapolis as well.
Correct.
And so they can respond to calls in Minneapolis, even though it's not the park.
Correct.
And so then can you tell us a few lines down at 201102? Do you see that line?
Yes.
And describe for us what is listed there.
They are taking one out.
And what does that mean?
Shout out to Lake Speed.
They are taking a person out of the vehicle.
Is that customary for officers to call that in?
Yes.
And right below that is a license plate number, correct?
Yes.
And we have removed the identifying information from that, correct?
Correct.
That's why there's a gap there. And though there is a street address in Minneapolis, correct?
Yes.
And that's on Ilion Avenue.
Correct.
Where is that in Minneapolis generally? Do you know?
That is in the 4th precinct.
So which side of Minneapolis is that?
That is on the north side of Minneapolis.
And so this information has gone out to the officers as well at that address.
Correct.
And then
Shout out Matt R.
following down to 2012-21, you see that entry?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jurors what's depicted on that line?
It is squad 320 is code 4.
And so that means what to you?
Scene safe.
And incidentally, this 2012 is military time, that's 8/12, correct?
Correct.
I suspect you're far more accustomed to translating that than the rest of us.
Very much.
And then the next line down, can you describe for the jurors what's there?
It says 8:30 is out with squad 320. That is when the squad ran.
That is when, what, I'm sorry.
The 8:30 park squad is now with squad 320 at that location.
And then if we move down to the next line, a whole bunch of stuff there. Not really concerned, that's just all coding for some.
Police officers.
So we've marked a copy of that video. Did you have a chance to view that before coming into court today?
Yes.
And you understand that we cropped it in the sense of on one side of the video, there's a huge sign that kind of obscures that whole area. But the rest of the video doesn't fairly accurately depict what you were able to see.
Correct.
So, Your Honor, we would offer what's been marked as Exhibit 11.
A sidebar right now, but basically she was explaining the different calls that were transpired during the time of the incident, what units she was dispatching to the location. And this is important because number one, it shows how experienced she is, and it also leads up to why she decided to call additional backup once the situation heightened.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start showing Exhibit 11. And I'm going to let it run for about 15 seconds and then I'm going to pause it, okay?
So right here is the view of the camera footage right across the street from Cup Foods, which is on Chicago Avenue. You can see the cruiser parked right there in front of Cup Foods, and you can see police officers escorting George Floyd right there, who's standing on that. All three is approaching the corner of the sidewalk. And this is the view that she also looked at herself to see what was going on. She was in and out of the video because she was working as well, dispatching calls. Calls that were going on other than the George Floyd incident.
All right, so I'm going to ask to pause it right here. Now, as I said, other than cutting out the big sign on the right side, does this fairly depict what you were able to see when you looked up at the screens on May 25th of 2020 regarding this incident?
Okay.
And you said when you first saw it, there were no officers. Now we obviously have seen some officers walking into view. Were you still able to watch it when they did walk into view?
I was in and out of this video, so I do not remember them walking to the car.
And what do you remember seeing the next time that you looked up?
I believe they were getting into the back of the squad car.
And do you remember then the next time that you were able to see it generally what was depicted?
I believe they were still trying to get into the back of the squad car. It was moving a little bit, and then I went back to my screens.
And I think what I'd like to do is have this run, and if you could just watch the video and tell the jurors when you were able to look up and what parts that you remember seeing that day during your shift, okay?
Okay.
All right.
So this is the milestone camera, which is a camera that is several milestone cameras in each city, show different parts of the city, and it's a reference camera. It's a reference footage for anyone. Most of the times they have it live online, and anybody could go to it to see the weather or just to see what's the different actions that's going on at the time. And this footage right here is accessible to her, so she decided to look at it, and this is what leads to her calling for backup. And as you see, they're struggling to get him in the car. She just mentioned that this is where she started looking at the video at, right here. And this is where they're struggling to get him in the car. This is when he's saying that he's claustrophobic. I think he mentioned that he couldn't breathe at that time, I think. But he was basically like resisting to get in the back seat. He was handcuffed as well.
No.
And then I didn't watch that much, and then the next time I looked, they were opening the door again.
Which door do you need?
The driver's side back seat.
I'm gonna pause this right here because if you look at the right side of your screen on 38th Street, you can see a figure. If you can see my cursor, then that's the figure I'm talking about right there. And that's our star witness, ladies and gentlemen. That's Mr. McMillan, Charles McMillan. He was the first person on scene and the last person to leave. Shout out to Randy M.
This is what I remember seeing.
So for the record, we see the officers now trying to put Mr. Floyd in the back seat.
Correct.
The timestamp on the top for the record reflects 8:17, 10 seconds when you said that approximately.
Yes.
So it's part of the video.
Yes. Yeah, I remember seeing the squad move.
What do you mean by move?
So like now you can see the squad is moving back and forth.
It's not like being driven, but moving back.
Right.
For the record now, the timestamp at the top is 8:17:50 approximately.
So she noticed the squad car move. He asked her
And I know I was
specifically not being driven but moving. And she said, correct, yes. Which means that she noticed that there was something going on more than them just putting him in the vehicle. There was an alarm that she seen was, going off when she noticed that the vehicle was moving.
watch all of this.
So at some point here, you had to turn away to do your job.
Yeah.
And do you remember what was the next thing you remember seeing?
The next time I remember looking up is they had moved from the back of the squad to the ground.
So when you see that, let me know and we'll just make a reference to it at that time.
Okay, I don't exactly know when they moved to the ground, I just know that when I looked up,
Right.
we were no longer in the back seat.
Shout outs to supposedly free. So, they're trying to get control of the suspect, which is George Floyd. Okay, they received a call that he gave them a counterfeit 20-hour bill. They didn't even investigate the situation. They just went straight to him. In other footage, you can see that the unit who initially contacted him approached him with guns drawn. So that situation went down. Now they're apprehending him, have him in cuffs, and they're having a struggle to put him in the backseat of the car. Okay, so they're trying to use force. They are trying to use force to get him in the car. Squad car moving back and forth, shifting back and forth.
because you told us that you remember seeing him on the ground with him, I want you to point out the time in the video that looks familiar to what you remember seeing when you say that you saw him on the ground with him, just so that we know, okay?
Shout outs to Kevin Werner. Appreciate you, bro. So they still struggling. They can't handle him. He doesn't want to get in the backseat of their car. He's handcuffed, and they still can't handle him. So that, according to police procedure, they have to use a level of force to be able to control the situation. Now he's on the ground. Chauvin, the second from the left. Second from the left. As soon as he get him on the ground, he applies the knee. Knee is applied because according to police procedure, they have to keep him restrained if he's resisting. And he was resisting in the car.
So for the record, the timestamp at the top reflects 8/19/25. So this is what you mean by them having him on the ground.
Correct.
Do you recall how long you were able to watch around this time?
No, honestly, I was in and out of looking at the cameras and then going back to my screens to make sure I wasn't missing anything, added remarks, getting out calls.
All right, so we could count about a minute. We got about a minute since they pulled him out the car onto the ground, and we had since they pulled him out, and these three gentlemen been on him. It's been about a minute. We got Chauvin right here. I believe we have Jay Alexander right here, and I don't know who's guy's name. That's Tal right there. But anyway, it's been about a minute. I don't see any struggle or any resistance since he was on the ground. And it's been about a minute now, and I don't see it. So at this point, according to the experts, they were supposed to get him up on his feet because he had his knee on his neck for at least a minute now, and there's no sign of resistance, no more signs of resistance. But they're supposed to get him on his feet, and with all the complaining that he was doing about his stomach hurt and he's claustrophobic, well, that's not really a medical situation, but they were supposed to wait on medical. But they had already had him handcuffed, and the senior officer already testified that once he's in cuffs, he is in their care. And they are responsible for his well-being. And they are properly trained to know when to stop using excessive force. At this point, within a minute in, my opinion, they were supposed to pick him up, let him breathe, because he's already handcuffed with his arms to the back, and that expands muscles, extends the muscles and the limbs. So, with all the struggle he was already going through, that's a breathing problem right there. But to relieve the situation, at least get him up on his feet, which they didn't do.
And then would go back to the screen again.
Now, and actually I think what I'll do is just pause it here. After seeing this, at some point, then did you look back to the screen?
To back to working?
No, back to this video of
Yes, I was in and out of looking at this screen and then my work.
And at some point then did you go back to this and how did it appear at that time when you went back to it?
Shout outs to Lake Speed. Have a good day. Shout outs to Lisa Speed too.
What do you mean by that?
They were still on the ground.
It's a very psychological thing that's happening here.
been other changes to the scene of people?
I didn't pay attention to the surroundings of what was going on. I just know that they had moved.
But at some point, did you see other like citizens in the video?
I cannot remember seeing them. I just remember looking up and seeing that the situation had changed.
Do you recall approximately how long that was?
No, it was long enough. It was long enough that I could look back multiple times.
And so when you did look back, still on the ground, like depicted here essentially.
Correct.
And what did you think about this when you looked back and saw that it had changed?
I first asked if the screens had frozen
Why did you ask that?
because it hadn't changed.
And what did you think about this when you looked back and saw that it had changed?
I first asked if the screens had frozen.
Why did
Hey
you
there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass.
No,
How did
I was told that it was not frozen.
you see the screen change?
Something.
What did you think about this when you looked back and saw that it had changed?
I first asked if the screens had frozen.
Why did you ask that? Did you find that it had frozen?
That's your
I
ass.
was told that it was not frozen.
Did you see that?
That's your ass.
Yes, I saw it.
So when did you start thinking like that?
Something might be wrong.
That's your ass.
We don't get these videos often.
But it's okay, did you see other citizens in the video?
I cannot remember so
Do you recall approximately how long that was?
no, it was long enough. It was long enough that I could look back multiple times.
And so when you did look back, still on
I ain't going nowhere, y'all.
here essentially.
That's your ass.
What did you think about this when you looked back and saw that it had changed?
I first asked if the screens had frozen
Why did you ask that?
because it hadn't changed.
That's your ass.
It had frozen.
That's your ass.
You changed yourself. Did you start thinking of that?
Something might be wrong.
Why?
We don't get these videos often, or video at all, unless it's looking at the bridge or just looking at people
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin.
actively on scene. And they had changed. They had come from the back of the slide to the ground, and my instincts were telling me that something was wrong. Something was not right. I don't know what, but something wasn't right.
In what ways were you thinking that something was not right?
It was an extended period of time. I mean, I can't tell you.
That's your ass.
And they hadn't told me if they needed any more resources. It's a multitude of different things that ran through my brain, but I became concerned that something went wrong.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
Something's not going right.
That's your ass.
They needed more assistance, or if there's just something wasn't right. I don't know how to explain it. It was a gut instinct to tell me that now we can be concerned.
And what did you decide to do?
I took that instinct and I called the sergeant.
And do you recall who the sergeant was that you talked to?
It was Sergeant Luke.
And why did you call a sergeant?
The sergeant is the police officer's supervisor.
That's your ass.
It was a police officer.
That's your ass.
But in your experience, you felt something was wrong here that the sergeant needed to know about.
Correct.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass.
Why would you involve a sergeant in a call that might involve your force?
Sergeants are usually always notified for use of force.
And so did you in fact call Sergeant Kruger?
I did.
You ever in your career before called a sergeant for something like this?
Multiple. For an incident like this,
Right.
to be exact, no.
Where you had this instinct and felt something was wrong and you needed to call a sergeant. You never had that incident or that situation before this incident.
If something was wrong with the call, yes. And not, I don't know how to say this. Not if I can call a sergeant for anything, because they are a resource. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I can call them regarding calls if something doesn't look right in the call, if there's a caution note, if there's something that they can do beyond the scope of the call, I can call them.
And have you had a chance to listen to a recording of that call you actually made?
Yes.
And that recording is made as part of the business of the call center, records that traffic.
Everything's recorded.
And we played a recording of that for you previously.
Yes.
And was it an accurate recording of your call?
Yes.
We've now marked that as Exhibit 12. We offer Exhibit 12.
12 was received.
And at this time, we'll play that call.
Okay, 30, 14, May 25, 2020. Hey, this is Channel. Just wanted to let you know about the person with the knife at 2602 Bloomington. And then, I didn't know, you can call me Snitch if you want to, but we have the cameras up for 320 call. Well, if you already put them in the same life, carry with again. And 320 over at Cup Food.
Okay.
I don't know if they had any force or not. They got something out of the back of the squad, and all of them sat on this man. So I don't know if they needed to or not, but they haven't said anything to me yet.
Yeah, I didn't say anything, so just take down, it doesn't count, but
Okay.
I'll find out.
No problem. We don't get to ever see it, so when we see it, we're just like, well, it looks a little different. I think but okay, 31, 33, May 25, 2020.
I'm going to walk through that just a little bit. At the very beginning, you spoke kind of fast. You identified yourself. You just described to the jury what you were saying there.
I told them my name was Jenna and that I was Channel 1 dispatch.
So that's meeting dispatch for 3rd Precinct.
Correct.
And
Shout out's been there, done that.
then you talked about something involving a knife. Is that related to this case at all?
No.
That was from some other call.
Correct.
And then you
Shout out's Caneo Valley 1A.
used the term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth, but it's out of the scope of my duties to call a sergeant if there was any use of force.
And so that's what the purpose, well, tell me what, I'm going to walk through that just a little bit. At the very beginning, something involving a knife. Is that related to this case at all?
No.
That was from some other call.
Correct.
And then you used the term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth, but it's
You used the term snitch.
yes.
What did you mean by that?
Correct.
And then
Yes.
what did you mean by that? You used the term snitch. What did you mean by that? The term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that? Snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Snitch. To tell on, to tell about, to uncover, to bring to light. She used the word snitch when she talked to Sergeant Kluger. There would be no reason to snitch if nothing happened. That's compelling testimony. She used the word snitch.
You used the term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
That's your ass.
You used the term snitch.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth. But
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass.
yes.
Your ass is grass.
You used the term snitch.
Yes.
That's your ass.
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth. But it's out of the scope of my duties to call a sergeant if call it if.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
That's your
At that
ass.
moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth. But it's out of the scope of my duties to call a sergeant if call it if there was any support.
And so that's what the purpose, well, tell me what was the purpose of making that call to him, giving him that information?
Voicing my concerns. Like I said, we don't see incidents. My job is mainly all listening.
And by the time you made that call, you said by the time you made that call, we were still able to see the video from the street camera.
Yes, the video was still out.
And what did you see at the time you were making that call?
That nobody was there.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your
The
ass.
ambulance was not in the video at that time.
Your ass is
The
grass.
reason why you made a reference to the video.
Yes, so
That's your ass.
I was speaking to the rest of my team
Your ass is
and
grass.
asking a question to them also on the
That
phone.
is your ass.
So probably a better time for me to ask this question, but have you ever, prior to that date, made a call like that to a sergeant?
No.
Shout out to Wi-Fi Cruiser. Cop blocker.
I have no further questions.
Should we take our lunch break or would you like to do a short call? Alright.
Shout out to Wi-Fi Ghost Cruiser.
Members of the jury will take our lunch break. Lunches should be delivered to your room soon. So we'll see you at 1:30.
They requested that as well.
So that's 320 calling in for that, correct?
Correct.
And so code 2, you told us earlier, means what?
Non-emergent.
And then describe for us then what's depicted in the next line at 2021-35.
And I didn't know, you can call me snitch if you want to, but we have the cameras up for 320 call. And I didn't know, you can call me 30 or 4 day 25 2020. Hey, this is Channel 1. So, just wanted to let you know about the person with the knife at 2602 Bloomington. And then, I didn't know, you can call me snitch if you want to, but we have the cameras up for 320 call. Oh, did they already put them in my slide? Okay, we did again. And 320 over at Cup Food.
Okay.
I don't know if they had any force or not. They got something out of the back of the squad, and all of them sat on this man. So I don't know if they need you or not, but they haven't said anything to me yet.
Yeah, then if anything else, we just take down, it doesn't count.
Okay,
I'll find out.
no problem. We don't need to ever see it, so when we see it, we're just like, well, what? What's different? Alright, they got it.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your
Walk through
ass.
that just a little bit. At the very beginning, you spoke kind of fast, you identified yourself. You described to the jury what you were saying.
I told them my name was Jenna and that I was Channel 1 dispatch.
So that's in dispatch for third precinct.
Correct.
And then you talked about something involving a knife. Is that related to this case at all?
No.
That was from some other call.
Correct.
And then term snitch?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
At that moment, it was a word that just came out of my mouth, but it's out of the scope of my duties to call a sergeant if there was any use of force.
And so that's what the purpose, well, tell me, what was the purpose of making that call to him and giving him that information?
Voicing my concerns. Like I said, we don't see incidents. My job is mainly all listening.
And by the time you made that call, you said something to Sergeant Klinger about, or did they take him already? By the time you made that call, were you still able to see the video from the street camera?
Yes, the video was still out.
And what did you see at the time you were making that call?
That nobody was there.
So you were aware the ambulance had come to the scene,
Yes,
but the ambulance was not in the video at that time.
correct.
Is that the reason why you made a reference to that video?
Yes, so I was speaking to the rest of my team over there and asking a question to them while still on the phone with the sergeant.
So probably better time for me to ask this
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. You have now watched another episode of Hey There, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Woo! Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Woo! Your ass is
Put his
grass.
knees upon his neck and his back,
That's your
grinding
ass.
and crushing him until
Your ass is
the very
grass.
breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life was squeezed out of him. You will
Your
learn
ass is
that
grass.
Mr. Floyd was unarmed. Officers take an oath. Officers take an oath when they become police officers.
That's your ass.
Officers take an oath.
Your ass is grass.
Officers take an oath.
That's your ass.
Officers take an oath.
Your ass is
Police
grass.
officers. They take an oath that I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately. And as you will learn, as applies to this case, never employing unnecessary force or violence. And not only
Your
that,
ass is grass.
I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I
That's your
accept the public
ass.
trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service.
That's your
Symbol of
ass.
public faith, ethics to police service,
Ass is grass.
sanctity of life, all of this matters tremendously to
That's
me,
your ass.
because you will learn that on May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Hey, your ass is grass. That's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass.
Then
Your ass is
his neck
grass.
and his back, grinding and crushing him until the very
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass. Your ass is grass.
No, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life. He put his knees upon his neck and his back, grinding and crushing him until the very breath. No, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin.
Please now.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin, that's your ass.
That Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs. He was completely under control of the police.
Your ass is
He
grass.
was defenseless. You will learn what happened in that 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The most important number you will hear in this trial, 929. What happened in those 9 minutes and 29 seconds when Mr. Derek Chauvin was applying this excessive force to the body of Mr. George Floyd. We have two objectives in this trial, ladies and gentlemen. The first objective is to give Mr. Chauvin a fair trial. Mr. Chauvin has a presumption of innocence. He is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. We plan to prove
That's your ass.
that Mr. Chauvin was anything other than innocent on May 25th of 2020. And
Your ass is grass.
necessary force or violence to become police officers. Officers take an oath when they become police officers. Officers take an oath when they become police officers.
That's your ass.
They take an oath that I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately. And as you will learn,
Your ass is grass.
as applies to this case, never employing unnecessary force or violence.
That's your ass.
And not only that, I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service. Symbol of public faith, ethics to police service, sanctity of life, all of this matters tremendously
That's your ass.
to this case, because you will learn
Your ass is grass.
that on May 25th of 2020,
That's your ass.
Mr. Derek Chauvin
Your ass is grass.
betrayed this badge
That's your ass.
when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd. That he put his knees upon his neck and his back, grinding and crushing him
Your ass is grass.
until the very breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life was squeezed out of him. You will learn that he was well aware that Mr. Floyd was unarmed, that Mr. Floyd had not threatened anyone, that Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs, he was completely in the control of the police, he was defenseless. You will learn what happened in that 9 minutes and 29 seconds, the most important numbers you will hear in this trial are 929. What happened in those 9 minutes and 29 seconds when Mr. Derek Chauvin was applying this excessive force to the body of Mr. George Floyd.
I'm out of here, y'all. See y'all on the next testimony. I don't know which one I'm gonna choose, but I'll be back. Y'all take it easy. I appreciate all y'all. Azai, damn, you just came in. OG Perfect Sense, Wi-Fi Ghost Cruiser, Kevin Werner, Spooky Press on Free. Appreciate y'all. Everybody that was in here earlier. Beneo Valley 1A. Loke Weymouth, UK, my man, Free Thinker 59. Lake Speed. Your ass is grass.
We have two objectives in this trial, ladies and gentlemen.
That's your ass.
The first objective
That ass is
Mr.
grass.
Chauvin a fair trial. Mr. Chauvin has a presumption of innocence. He is presumed to be
That's
innocent
your ass.
until proven guilty.
That's your
We plan
ass.
to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Your ass is grass.
When they become police officers take an oath. When the officers take an oath. Officers take an oath. When they become police officers. They take an oath that I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately.
That's your ass.
And as you will learn,
Your ass is
as applies to
grass.
this case, never employing unnecessary force or violence.
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. That's your ass. That's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
Or violence. And not only that, I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as
Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. That's your ass. That's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.
I am true to the ethics of police service. Symbol of public faith, ethics to police service, sanctity of life, all of this matters tremendously to this case. Because you will learn that on May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge.
That's your ass.
He used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Your ass is grass. That's your ass.
That he put his knees upon his neck and his back, grinding and crushing him until the very breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life was squeezed out of him. You will learn that he was well aware that Mr. Floyd was unarmed, that Mr. Floyd had not threatened anyone, that Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs, he was completely in the control of the police, he was defenseless. You will learn what happened in that 9 minutes and 29 seconds, the most important numbers you will hear in this trial, 9 to 9. What happened in those 9 minutes and 29 seconds when Mr. Derek Chauvin was applying this excessive force to the body of Mr. George Floyd.
That's your ass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass.
We have two objectives in this trial, ladies and gentlemen.
Your ass is grass.
The first objective is to give Mr. Chauvin a fair trial.
That's your ass.
Mr. Chauvin has a presumption of innocence. He is presumed to be innocent until proven
Your ass is grass.
guilty. We plan to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Chauvin was
That's
innocent
your ass.
thing other than innocent on May 25th of 2020. And
His ass is grass. I'll let y'all. That's his ass. His ass is grass. Hey there, Mr. Chauvin. That's your ass. Your ass is grass. That's your ass. That's your ass. That's your ass. Your ass is grass.